Wow. All right, we are back at the Library Cafe Ghana. I'm Freedom Interamaliel, your hostess with the mostest, and I'm here right now at the Literature Lounge, and we have a special guest who is the author, who is here to talk about his amazing book, and I use that word a lot, amazing, but in this particular instance, it is all that in a bag of chips. His name is, I want to pronounce it properly, so I've been working on them. Mbwebe Aja Ishangi. Okay, all right. And his book is this incredible title. Now you're gonna remember it when I say it. It's called A Pot to Piss In. But that's only the beginning. That's not the most important part. The most important part is intergenerational wealth planning for Black people. Let me say that again. Intergenerational wealth planning for Black people. That's imperative that we understand that title. All right, so we have with us introducing Mbwebe.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, sister. Greetings. Greetings, everyone.
Thank you. I'm so glad you came.
Yes, I'm so thankful for the invitation. I couldn't
Oh my
pass.
God.
Couldn't
You
pass.
know, when I first met you, I was so just overwhelmed with joy to be hearing somebody talking about these things that are so vital for us and our communities, if we can even say we have communities anymore. I think people talk a lot about Black Wall Street, and this week's focus is being Black Wall Street. Understanding that it's more than just a set of words. It is really a concept in life. How to imagine and reimagine, reconfigure, embody, manifest all of that, who you are, who you were created to be, who you are just naturally. And we have had so many things to plague us in terms of our identity, that we have come up with this identity issue where we see ourselves as impoverished. You know, all of those pictures, we don't think anything about it, but that's how we got our impression of Africa. But Africa is poor, and Africa is this, and Africa, all those pictures that they used to show of African children in these raggedy clothes, you know, help me, send me money. And most of the time we were sending money and it wasn't getting to them. If we did send it, it wasn't getting to those people who looked in need, and they were like looking like, what's the problem, you know? So first thing I want to talk to you about is our image of abundance, because I read in that book that you were living the life, like working for the NBA, and you were still working for the NBA, traveling all around the world, you know, the big bank account, you know. So I was like, dang, brother, you know. And but that wasn't the key time that you felt your abundance in its full capacity. So can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah. Wow. It is the illusion of success. You know, you do what you're supposed to do. You know, you go and you get the certification, you go to college, you want to work for someone. And, I happen to be lucky to work for one of the Fortune 500's most lucrative businesses in the world, the National Basketball Association. I worked there from 2006 to 2017, 12 years. And after the first year, I realized the charade it was. It's one thing to stand next to LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, and you're like, wow, these wonderments. But then you start to realize that they're just human like I am. And really the difference is that they have a skill that I might not have. But that's outside from that, we're all human beings. But the fact that it's monetized in a way that even with this corporation, that it is a modern rendition of slavery. It is a mindset that they're trying to capture. as LeBron might have said, is that when they told him to just shut up and dribble, just play ball. Like they want to make sure that they are not culturally aware of what's happening in their communities. And that's something that is not just in the NBA league, but a lot of folks, when they grow up, they want to leave the hood. They want to go for something better. And that imagery of what's better is something that doesn't look like us, unfortunately. So it is a recipe that has been, I like to call it a cultural lobotomy.
Wow.
Part of our brain has been removed of who we are in our essence. And at the same time, it's been replaced, as you mentioned, with imagery that we think is what really looks like in Africa, but it isn't, or that the Black experience is about inherited beautiful struggle. Like these things are not inherently what it is if we do our diligence and understand the story via Sankofa, doing some research, going back and seeing for yourself, not believing the so-called his story books, but going and seeing for ourselves. So that's something that, and working in this place where, again, multi-billion-dollar company, again, traveling, I had those experiences going around the world and experiencing things, but I was unfulfilled as far as my mission. And like, how can we have this many, when you look at a game, you're looking at a minimum of $10 million on the basketball court. Because
And
each
how
player
many million people?
that part too, the amount of money that they make.
Yes.
So the question is, we can't say that we don't have money, we don't have access to money, but what we don't have access to is what to do with it. And that's where we see the system is put in place to make us want to be something from what we, other than once we came, not to go back and make it better, but to be part of their system.
So can I ask you this? I want to ask you about how we're defining abundance, because we say money all the time. It's not, but money, the little song I play, I'm healthy, happy, love, and be, it's like, yeah, that's real thing, because you had the money, they have the money, and it's yet, and still, like this woman, Kate Spade, fabulous designer, all riches and everything, and she commits suicide. Robin Williams, that's a deep one right there. So when we look at this thing of monetary as happiness or not, it's like we have to trade it off. It's like we talked about last week when we talked about women should be the priority. We talked about women always having to choose. Well, it's like when we talk about abundance, we have to choose a lot of money or being a monk. Where we can have that peace in our soul, because dealing with Jesus didn't have no money.
Right.
It's like, what? Are you kidding me? So it almost makes money is the root of all evil. We start getting into this thing of money is this demon, and then we equate money with success so much. So we're living in this dichotomy, like this illusion inside of an illusion. It's not even just one illusion that we're working with. We're dealing with so much illusion inside of an illusion that we have yet to define the truth about abundance. So when we look at Black Wall Street, which was coined by Booker T. Washington because it was part of his paradigm, his model of how to get to freedom. Right? When we look at it, we say, oh, they burned that down. They burned down Rosewood. We shouldn't do that anymore. But we're not looking at the idea of that built community. And we don't have community right now. We're living inside white folks' communities, paying them for our food, paying them for our restaurants, paying them for our mortgages, paying their banks, paying their this, they're that. So what about this way? How do you define abundance?
And so I point that back to the procedure of that cultural lobotomy. When you've taken away a person's essence of who they are and what they're really about, what their value system really is. Say, with the point that you make about Booker T and Black Wall Street, we have a history of naming things after things that aren't really the most positive. Was Wall Street ever good to Black people? Wall Street is where they sold Africans, or sold our ancestors. So when we create a town, we call it Black Wall Street instead of maybe call it Nile Valley. Something that is of true essence of where we are. but nothing against Booker T, he's
No, no.
his
Mhm.
best, but the point is that we need to elevate it, and
Yeah.
let's be more purposeful in what abundance is. And nothing but the core of abundance starts with your cultural identity and
Mhm.
knowing where your essence is. And then you start naming things, and where it be buildings or practices or holidays after those things, to preserve that, because we have a history of preserving the wrong people. We
So
celebrate the
Puja
wrong.
Chagalia. So we self-determining now.
Exactly. In
Gotcha.
everything. And language, I think, is the most important factor. Because
Yeah.
even now we may use the terminology of mentor, not knowing who mentor is, that he was a pedophile. Instead of using the terminology that Amos Wilson gave us as Jegna. When we don't know the names, the language of what we're using to call things for ourselves, we are still giving them that energy, because we know that word sound power is about language. So when you speak these things, you are bringing these things into essence, you're bringing it into fruition. So it's not to say we all have to speak the same language, but let's just be mindful of what we say, because that's where the core of abundance begins: is who are you? What is your cultural identity? What's your
I'm
point of?
writing these down, so wait a minute. I know
Okay.
it's all in the book.
Yes.
It's all in the book. So
Yes.
the book is not just information, it's strategies and
Yes.
planning procedures. So, every household should have one.
And
Okay,
I
so just let me
believe.
be clear about that.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. I got,
no worries. No worries.
hey, hey.
Not say. Not say. Yeah.
Mhm.
But it really, I think, is when, before we even talk about money, and that's why in the book I speak about, it's not just, okay, well, how can you change your credit score? How can you do this or this with money? But let's understanding the cultural systemic creation of money and how it has been used as a bondage. We see money as we mentioned, we have money, but we don't know what to do with it. We're doing the wrong things with it because we've never been taught how to, as we mentioned about success. Success is you either choose to be that monk or you choose to be that rich person. But we think the only way to get rich is you have to work for it. That money you have to go out and trade your time for money. And that's the rat race psychosis that we're falling into. But
For your greatness. So they
yes,
take our patent, they patent what we created, like, and that's what we've been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. And even in Africa right now, where they are taking out our natural product and turning around and recreating another product out of it, or they're going over there and buying these amazing things for cheap, 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 and coming over here and selling it for 500% profit.
yes,
So I'm with you. Yes. Please.
that is the whole economy of this whole thing of global white dependency is not supreme at all. There's no supremacy in supremacy. It's all dependency, and that dependency is depending on our ignorance. If we don't know who we are, we don't know who we've come with, and more importantly, we don't know who's the persons behind us not knowing who we are. As I like to bring in my Jegna, Anthony Browder's uh, his poem Transition
How do
13,
you spell Jegna? I'm sorry.
Jegna.
Mhm.
And Amos Wilson should be credited for bringing us this name. I use it happily whenever when someone mentions mentor. I say, well, let's do some research on mentor, so you know who he is. And then we understand what Jegna really is. But that's the goal, is what Dr. Browder, Baba Browder has said with Transition 13, is that, we once knew things, we created everything. So we're the first innovators, but then we forgot. And what made it worse is that we forgot that we forgot. And
Mm.
so those folks that we taught turned around and taught it back to us. And we're thinking they're the ones that are the originators when they're actually not. So that's the whole goal right now. We're in a process of a Sankofa, a reaffirmation of who we are, a self-reclamation culturally. So then when you have that as your base, now you can come and deal with money and understand the power that you can use it as a tool, as a weapon, opposed to as a means to an end. So that's where the education comes in. In the book, I speak about apocalypse, and the etymology of it is because we've not had a pot to piss in, because we've had passed down trauma and poverty and the impoverished mindset, because we thought that that's what it's supposed to be for us. Whereas others are living their heaven here simply because of a bit of information that they can use to manipulate the rest of the world with. We can now do the same thing now. We're in the information age. This information's out here. So we can implement those same strategies into our methodologies of life and have the same type, if not better, lifestyle, because ours is with purpose. Now it's not just for me, but it's for the collective. What
Yeah.
can I do for my, not only for my bloodline, but what about my neighbor, my, my extended family? And what can we do, not just in a domestic state, but what can we do on a global era or realm? What can we do to see that we are a more unified folk if we see ourselves as such? And then we come together with, not only a cultural background, but also the finances to back up whatever we want to create. We'd be unstoppable. And it's happening. I believe it's happening. We're seeing in the next generations that, we're being forced whether we want to or not anyway, because whether generations want to be, the next generation wants to be influencers, we're seeing that artificial intelligence is going to usher out to have to be able to be innovators now, because
Yes.
the jobs aren't going to be there. So we're going to have to create something. But
Yes.
the beautiful thing is that we have a little bit of their blue book, or, that we can now make our black print to create sustainable wealth. And with that will be extended into our generation, 70 years into the future.
Well, you're my Jegna. So I appreciate you so much. I'm just like sitting here thinking about the next generation, because it's intergenerational wealth planning. Do you suggest us sitting down all together to discuss money and to teach about money and to learn about money? And do you suggest that we make that a regularly scheduled event or thing in our families?
1,000,000 gazillion percent.
Yeah.
The thing that I always think about is, we have to eradicate the myth that talking about money is taboo, because most of us are afraid to talk about how broke we are. Right? We don't want to tell anybody that I need, and that's, to me, is culpable to what.
I'm not.
That's the
But then
point.
they call me a beggar, so what can I say? It's like, but I was just telling you about what my money situation was.
I think the issue is that, we're great at getting together, but we haven't been good at getting together. Like, we'll have cookouts, we'll have, reunions. And even within those reunions, if we took 30 minutes to just talk about finances, and okay, who knows? That's the other question, is who knows? And is there's a trust factor, things of that nature. Well, this is why I wrote this book, because this book, I think, should be, as you mentioned, in the homes of every person of melanated hue, because we don't have these conversations. We're not, before me losing my job at the NBA, and I meant to mention that I got fired because of my cultural stance, not because of the way I work, but because of what I stand for culturally on my own personal time. But because we don't speak about these things, then, it gets handed down. The ignorance gets handed down generation after generation. So how do we eradicate that? How do we stop this cycle? And that means that we have to become educators. We must become literate about this very thing that we work for our entire adult lives. Everything that we are growing up to do, we're told you to get a job. Why? So you can have money. Get a degree. Why? So you can get a job, so you can have money. All these things are based upon money. Well, we can skip a lot of that stuff if we just study money and learn how, as other folks have done for over 2 centuries, live off your savings and investments. And I'm not talking about investing in Wall Street. I'm not talking about, commodities like soybeans and junk silver. No, I'm speaking about passive income plays that Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey won't tell you about. These are the plays that they're using, that Warren Buffett is using, to create intergenerational wealth beyond his time. And this is free information. It's available if you do the diligence, and it can be applied. It's not hard to do. It's not rocket science.
So I apologize. I was a little distracted in that I was texting my a friend of mine, a partner of mine, a board member of my nonprofit, and because he has a reading program. He's a mastermind. Stan is a man who started a reading program and reads to adults, children, everybody all over the world, these motivational books, and the books that make us better. but a lot of them, we have been having the discussion that there aren't enough motivational financial books out there. So they're always reading the same ones, like the Tony, Tony somebody, he's a motivational speaker, and he has a book called something about the giant, something, yeah, Tony Robbins and the giant, something about the giant inside or something. And I'm always saying, can't you get any Black writers? Like, I love you, man, but can't you give me, something else? Because you spend weeks, months, days, years, all of that reading these books over and over again to try to understand. And I said, I'm going to introduce you to this. And he was like, a pot to piss in, what kind of book? And I was like, no, really, this brother, you got to trust me on this one. So I was texting him saying, come now, because I want him to meet you. I want him to understand who we are, that it's out there for us, that we don't have to keep depending on learning how to do things their way, that we have our greats who are hitting this challenge on the head, and they're really winning, and that these are the voices that we need to hear. So even if he doesn't come on, if he's not able to, because I don't know if he has a doctor's appointment, he was in New York, and I've been trying to get him to reach to you and to meet you, because you were in New York, but you're now in North Carolina, which is all the same, because as long as you're near, we clear. But there's this thing that we have and we do that deals with fighting over the legacies that our parents, grandparents, whatnot have left us. And that's a big, heavy one for me. Everybody wants the money, not the land. We sell the house, we drop the all the furniture, all the artifacts, all the everything. Soon as they go, I want that money, money, because there's something missing in our connection to what wealth truly is. And that goes back to our definition and all of that we just talked about. I just want you to speak on that a little bit. Like, what are the first steps if you are, because my grandfather, my mother's side had a mortuary business, funeral home. He had houses. He had, he made sure every child got a house, and, and he couldn't read past the 6th grade. He couldn't write his own name. He had to be taught how to sign his name and put an X or whatever it was, because he had to start working early on. But how can you imagine, like, you said, wait, what are you talking about? You need an education to be wealthy. What are you talking about? All of the myths were ingrained into my family situation. So he made sure every child was educated, but there was no education to respecting the wealth that he had acquired. And now we're all fighting over one house. I mean, that's probably too much information. That's my personal information, and we're not fighting over one house. And everybody has their own. So it's not like anybody is like really, as soon as the same in my father's side too, they left the house in a part of town that was nothing back then. Now it's one of the highest, ritziest areas, and they've already sold the house, so it's like, and we, I just can't, I would just love you to speak on it, because the thing I want people to know about you is that you didn't just start this yesterday. You're a young man, but you didn't just start this yesterday, and you just didn't start to learn about it when you got in this NBA position where you were making all this money and you were handling money. You were learning it. You were brought up in it. I want you to tell us a little bit about your background in terms of that too, how you got your learning. But these are important things that I would really love for you to address.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's the thing, and the point is that I'm a believer in divine timing of things happening for a reason. And when I was exposed to, I've always been a student of African history, dating back to 1991, when I was a junior in college. And Jegna Anthony Browder was the one that really exposed things for me. And I turned into a writer because I wanted to get this information to my generation. But I knew that the language and the way it was written was kind of like over our head. So I kind of urbanized it and created a magazine called the Ghetto Times Magazine. Actually, next week we'll be celebrating our 30th year. So we've been doing this for 30 years.
And don't forget to tell us how we can buy into, because there's Essence is very small now. I don't know if there is any more Jet. And we just and I'm not getting Oprah as much as I like her. It's too many white folks up in there. I just can't deal with it.
With
So
advertising.
I would like a good magazine.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so that's the point, is that the information that we weren't exposed to, I just, being a lover of history, wanted to learn about our story and what college wouldn't teach. Because I was a black, well, now called Africana Studies major, but I didn't learn the things I knew because I understood that institution was a white institution. So they're going to obviously, monitor what we get exposed to it. And then really talk about Marcus Garvey. We talked all about the other ones, right? But so my educational background, my not even educational, but my preference has always been in the relearning of our story. How do we get here? Why is it so hard for us? And what can I do once I know that to move it to the next level? And it took roughly 25 years for me to figure that next level, the economic part of it, because we can talk about economics, but we really don't know about finances. And that's where I believe the ancestors were working with me and saying, you lost your job, you got kicked off the corporate plantation, but don't do what everybody else does and tries to find another one to hire them. Learn about what you're doing. This and what we do for every day of our adult lives anyway, is understanding what money is. So I decided that I wanted to learn about finances, and in learning about finances has taken me on this journey, which has then evolved into me creating the Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement, LLC, and then also the book that I wrote, my sixth book, Apocalypse and Intergenerational Wealth Planning. And the reason why I chose that title, because etymologically, it's assigned to us that we feel like, we are born in poverty. And it's true. I mean, we think about it, before there was underwater sewage and plumbing, when you want to relieve yourself, you used a pot. You relieved yourself and you threw it out the window or you walked it out the door. Well, we were so poor that we couldn't even afford that pot. So we couldn't even afford the ground we stood on. So that was the moniker that, if you can't even own something to relieve yourself with, then you must be actually poorer than poor. And that's been assigned to us, not just as a race, but like psychologically, we think that we're poor. We're born into these things. So we feel like it's going to always be tough. But once I learned now that, okay, well, that's the card they gave us. But with applied knowledge, if you do the research and you do you do the diligence, then, and you understand how the system of money was made and how folks like Jekyll Island, when they met in 1910 and created the Federation of Incorporating of America and stealing America away from the citizens and incorporating us to pay taxes. And we learned about how Rockefeller had said that he didn't want a nation of workers, but a nation of thinkers. He wanted a nation of workers. That we see how, like your grandfather, he was a self-made man. He understood that I don't care about math. I want to make sure I can sustain. Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food in my backyard? Can I feed my family? That's the foundational elements of life. Money has gotten in the way of that because we think the only way to attain money is through educational status. Well, what it really brings you is indentured debt.
And that good government job. No, don't forget that. That good government job, man.
Exactly. So
don't start no business. You better get you a good government job. Okay.
That's right. That's right. The point is that you're trading your best hours of the day working for someone else, opposed to working for yourself. And you're on the hook because, for instance, if you buy a house and you have a 15 or 30-year mortgage, you're telling the bank, I promise to pay you. And if I can't, you can come and take what I have. You could be in your 29th year, 51st week. And if you're 90 days past, they will take all that from you, no matter what you've been doing for the last 29 years. But we somewhat guarantee them that we can pay this for this amount of time, but our job gives us no guarantee. Job doesn't say I'll keep it for 15 years, for 30 years. So in the event you lose your job, you're forced to go find another job, not because you want to, but because you don't want to lose a roof over your head. You want to be able to take care of your family. So this is why money has gotten in the way of what life is about. We weren't born to work. We're the only species on the planet that has to pay rent to live here. Think about that. Of all living things, you don't see birds paying construction companies to put up a nest, or they're paying property taxes for their nest being in a certain jurisdiction on the tree. We're the only species that has to do that. So, okay, if that's the case, then why not figure out how we can use the monetary system to our advantage opposed to being a slave to it, which is what we have been. So this is why I wrote this book, to give us those antidotes and money methodologies to free yourself.
Jigna, Jigna. Jigna. And that's another thing. That's another very important thing. So what you're saying to me basically is the answer to that question is read the book.
Yes, yes.
I appreciate that. Okay. So again, read the book, everybody. Read the
It's on
book.
audio too. If you don't have time to read it.
Hey, I got to get it on audio because I want to read it again. I read it so fast so I could be ready for this interview that I didn't enjoy it. Like I enjoyed every bit of it. Especially the introduction. I mean, I couldn't get past I was marking so many things in my page. I look like, I was marking so many pages with the little sticky notes, I want to talk on this. Oh, I want to talk on this. Oh, I want to talk on this. So here we are. Looking at something you mentioned in the book, which is that the dollar circulates inside of the Chinese community 23 days, 20 days in the Jewish community, 17 in the white community. I hope I have all my facts right. And 6 hours in the Black community. Whereas at Black Wall Street, Greenwood, because you said don't do that. But I understand the reference because that's all that Booker T had to reference.
Yes.
When it came to investing.
Yes.
Investing in the future. In other words, when you go to Costco and you buy up for a month, that's an investment. You're making sure that you have toilet paper for 3 months ahead. So that's an investment. So what are we making sure we have when we get and we spend out of our community immediately? We're not making sure we have anything because we're not even thinking about the future. Right. Okay. So in that dilemma of looking at that, those facts are pretty close to today, 2020, I think they were from, right? 2020.
Yes.
So what we're going to do about it?
Well, I think the good point that you made is, this is systemic. It's not something that's new. So just for reference, in 1863, when we were emancipated from physical enslavement to mental enslavement, we had amassed collective of 0.5% of the nation's wealth. It made sense because, we were enslaved. We couldn't even own the floor we stood on. But and it's even correct, even today, 2023, those numbers are still consistent that we've only amassed 0.5% more since 1863. Over 150, 60 years later, we've only amassed 0.5% more of the nation's wealth.
Wait a minute. So when we're saying the nation's wealth, I just want to make things really crystal clear to people. So that means property, businesses. What does that mean exactly when we say the nation's wealth?
We're talking about ownership. We're talking
because it's not about how much money we own, how much money we have. It's about the wealth is considered like health is wealth because the medical society is sieving out all of our income. They say that if you get a retirement payment, by the time you buy groceries, pay taxes, pay for your rent and all of, or keep your house, whatever it is you pay, mortgage, whatever, rent, whatever, and put gas in your car and all, you broke again. Like, pay for your medical care.
Yeah.
So it goes into proper eating, so that you can keep yourself, because we didn't go to their doctors. Their doctors would hardly ever see us. So we didn't go to their doctors back in those days. We had to find the ways to heal and cure ourselves. And we worked closely with Native people to do that. So that was the wealth. that was wealth, having that knowledge of the herbs and how to keep your health. Because if you weren't healthy, anything could happen,
Yeah. Well,
right?
the original pharmacy was the farm.
Yes,
That's
pharmacy.
where things came from, we knew about medicinal plant use. We knew about to go in the backyard and pick this herb, this, that, for that remedy or for that illness or whatever. And the pharmaceutical industry has come on the set and taken those, culture vultures, as Del Jones' ancestor would say, that they would take their stuff, they're pirates of our innovations, and they incorporated. The only thing they've really mastered is copywriting and
Patenting.
and,
Patenting.
and patenting, exactly. So they take this information and then they sell it back to us. And this is again transition 13, as I mentioned earlier. We forgot, and it was sold back to us, not knowing
But they don't even sell the information back to us. They sell us some shoddy product that is killing us.
100%. And it really isn't healing us. It's to create a slow drip death to make it keep coming back. And that's the other part, as you mentioned, about health as well, is so important, is that it's not just about the money, because we'll work so hard to put away something for that nest egg when we retire, but then we're not healthy enough to enjoy it because we've been eating these certain things over these decades that we call soul food. And that's the reason why we're soulless when it comes time to retire. We don't have the energy. And so
by the time we get the pot to piss in, we're kicking the bucket.
That's right.
Sorry.
I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will cite you as that source. That's what we are not. And then we're told that you are supposed to, we bought into the cookie cutter template that you are supposed to work until you're 65, right? That's what adulting is. And then you'll have your bliss. Well, when you're 65, you're probably worn out.
No, you won't. You have your bliss when you go to heaven.
Well, that's the other part they tell you, right? But
right? Because they moved that number up to 670 now, almost.
Well, they're always going to push the goalpost back.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
More refined and more aware. But the thing that I think the biggest important thing that you can do, and this is what I learned that put me on my path. I'll go back to, it's in the book. When I went to pull out money out of my 401k, realized I was going to get taxed, but I said, I need this money to think. I need about 3 months to pull away and hold myself for a while. And when it came time to fill out my application for pulling out money, they had a part that said, what's your occupation? And I told my broker, I'm unemployed. I don't want to put that on there because I thought I might get declined, not realizing that the 401k money is mine to take at that point. But he corrected me. He said, you're right. Let's not put that you're unemployed. Let's put that you live off your savings and investments. And when I realized that, whoever thought that you could live off your savings and investments? We weren't taught that. We were taught we have to work for our money, not invest in something and live off of that, which is passive income.
And if you're not working, you won't have any.
Exactly. We were told the part of adulting is you are supposed to be out and doing, which gets in the way again of what your life purpose really is. And this is why they say when folks that do retire, a lot of folks die within 12 to 18 months after they retire because they don't know what else to do. They've been programmed to serve. They don't even know what they like. And so it's a whole psychological rat psychosis that we've bit into because we were only told one avenue. But now we're in this realm. We're in the information age. We're seeing things and we're understanding things. You have choices. And with those choices, we have to understand they must be better choices if we even want to still exist in this new fourth industrial complex that's coming. So it's imperative. Learning about money isn't just a hobby. It isn't just to say, oh, I have this digital portfolio. What that means nothing because you can't eat your digital portfolio. If you don't have land, if you're not growing food, if you don't know how to be off grid if need be for power and water, and more importantly, even thinking about not even being on this continent, having the ability to leave if you want, then you will be succumbing to what they have planned for us. And this is not a doomsday approach, but this is just taking us back to your grandfather, the days of his, when he understood he was self-defined. I'm going to live the life that I want to live and provide the way I want to. That's what our purpose of life is supposed to be, like those birds and bees that don't ask for permission to put up a nest in a tree.
Well, he didn't have a choice, though. He didn't have a choice, because he didn't have, he couldn't
Education.
afford that education and
Right.
everything. He didn't, actually, he was born in a strange relationship between his mother, who was a sharecropper on the land of a white man who obviously impregnated her, however that went. And she had two children and gave them both away, and to want him to an elderly couple and the other to a religious couple. And she left town never to return. He never got to know his mom. And my mother used to speak of how he would cry. He would cry, his heart was broken. And so family was everything to him, you know. And so he worked with what he had the ability to work with. And this is where the importance of learning about Booker T is so prevalent, because that talented 10 concept that comes from Du Bois it can be a danger
Yes.
for us that comes with integration.
Yes.
That can be dangerous. And but integration is a necessity to some degree, because the world is integrated, and
Right.
it is you know, in order for people to understand your greatness, there has to be integration. You know, if I create something and I say only Black people are going to use it and we're going to use it over here, that's not really realistic. So there has to be some integration, but we have to understand the boundaries of the things we talk about, because that talented 10 thing is, and oftentimes I'm in objection to people saying, well, what did Booker T. Washington do? I said, well, have you ever heard of Tuskegee Institute or like Fisk University or anything? Like, I think that's a pretty powerful thing over something else, you know, or because I don't want to start, you know, there's the jealousy thing is a highly impractical part of abundance, because I could be jealous of you because I can't reach my abundance, but it's in me and it's possible for me, just like it is for you, as opposed to saying, what did this brother do? Now, and see, people go to the guru and they want the magic potion, and they, you know, taking the magic potion. I'm gonna do that too. But that's not what it's all about. It's about you doing what you need to do. It's like if I'm sick and in the hospital and the doctor says you're lacking vitamin D and vitamin and potassium, you can't come into the hospital with the same symptoms and say, I'm gonna just take some vitamin D and some potassium, and that's gonna solve my problem too. Because you might need something different, because your head is different and your understanding of your wealth and your wealth itself is different. Like, you might have a job and you might have a business and I don't. So we don't have the same solutions, yet there has to be a common denominator for this wealth objective.
Yeah, that's
so that we don't create those kinds of jealousies that creates, you know, I'm going to kill my grandmother so I can get the house now, you know, because she's not dying fast enough, you know, and all of these ideas, oh, they want my money, you know, all these things we go through because of our inner headspace about abundance, you know, like everybody can be abundant and there'll still be enough.
Well, if I may add that this is the interesting thing, because I look at it also as a systemic.
Add and expound.
So I look at it like this was a planned situation. Think about this. Now, when we were emancipated, you know, now we had the opportunity to learn. And so, of course, there's that, you know, there's that think tank that's like, well, we can't have them learning everything because they might learn what we know. And if they learn what we know, then we'll be of no use, or they'll, you know, they'll have no use for us and we can't monopolize them. And this is why I'm going to plug this book, Who's the Boule, because we talk about that era of Booker T. We talk about W.B. Du Bois and why he is was so people still quote him as the talented 10th person when it wasn't him, it was Lyndon B. Morehouse that came up with the talented 10th moniker. He actually adopted it from him. But the whole idea of W.B. Du Bois was a nemesis. He did not agree with Booker T, and he was groomed to be that opposition to Booker because Booker was about doing for yourself. W.B. Du Bois was saying, no, let's go get certified. Let's go get degrees, and then the white folk will love us. And so we find that we chose because that was promoted more than Booker T. And for those that don't know, all HSBCs were created to rival Tuskegee. Okay, Tuskegee was the first and really only original HSBC founded by Black folk, but these other HSBCs that are out, they're named after folks that aren't even of our hue. But the point is that this was an era where they had to make sure they captured the African mind and keep them from someone like a Marcus Garvey and make them be more like a W.B. Du Bois who wanted to assimilate. And in that assimilation, we decided that education was more important than our cultural identity. And once in doing that, what came with the certifications is the debt.
And being accepted.
Yes.
Was more important than understanding and accepting ourselves.
But the debt is what has held us back from self-determining. We, as opposed to doing for ourselves, the white man's ice became colder. We needed to get accepted by them. We needed to work for them. We needed to be in their spaces, opposed to, as we were doing for ourselves, very well, going even back to the Nile Valley days of Kush, been documented well, that we could do for ourselves by ourselves. And it's not to say that it didn't mean that we didn't do trade with other ethnicities. No, we did do that. But we were self-determining and knowing that we were not going to be 99% consumer, 1% producer. Is there a reason why we are still that today? With all the so-called $1.6 trillion purchasing power we have today, we're still 99% producer because we are still looking for appeasement and acceptance via the talented 10th model of being accepted by white folk and not doing for ourselves. So this is a strategy that has been seeded and has blossomed into 100+ years of Black folk being pushed back and more impoverished. Even though we have material things, we have no wealth because our exposure to any type of material wealth is coming from a place of not having. So you give me $100, I'm going to spend it on some Jordans if it's even worth that today. Of course, they're worth more. But the point is that we're going to spend whatever we have, opposed to learning how to live off our savings and investments. Something that other
having savings and investments.
Right.
And it's another topic, so keep going. And we'll get to that one because I really want to talk about savings and investments.
Yes. But it's, to me, like I said, this is why history is so important. We just can't talk about money first. But you got to look at this is why I consider myself a financial therapist, is that we need therapy.
Yeah.
We need to understand our relationship with money. We've never had a great one with it because we've only been introduced to it as a means to an end. Once you get it, you pay for that. Once you get it, you do it for that. You cover this, you cover that.
And we were it.
Yes, that part too. That part too. So that's the point, is that the common sense has been removed. The sense has been removed to dollars and cents as far as attain all you can, but they never show you how to hold on to it. Attain all you can so you can buy all these things.
I just want to say that whole thing of us being the money, us being the commerce, us being the exchange thing meant that somebody else could justify our worth.
Absolutely.
Could say what we were worth or what we were not worth. And so that automatically gave us a different value system when it came to money. It's like making the African dollar 500 to 1 American dollar. So it's like that conversion. That's what they're doing in Africa now. They're making the place completely worthless by putting a price tag on it that is conducive to what they think the value. They saying something, but putting a price tag on it that says something about the worthlessness of it, or the devaluing of it. So,
but the catch is, though, is that if we're aware of that, just as the value of it is less, if we as investors, we can also invest in it as they are. At the same price point, only our motive is to rebuild it, not to exploit it. But
I've
that's
already bought land in Ghana, and you know, I'm getting ready to go over and build. I'm already supporting, you know, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Togo, you know, working to create a network
mm,
of support and financial literacy,
mhm,
where I can begin to, you know, quilt with other Africans and make something not only sustainable for my children, but all African children. You know, each one reach one.
absolutely.
You know, yes, thank you.
Well, have you, as and then just a little tidbit, if you're looking for assistance in building structures, I am part of a group of brothers where we are actually rebuilding. We're in the infrastructure business in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, in Namibia, Gambia, and we're looking to hit all parts of those nations so that we can build our own homes, creating cisterns, building blocks. We do all those things in regards to self-sustaining, so that we don't have to, pay someone else for something that is ours anyway, and reinvesting in our spaces. That's the next level of becoming financially literate. Is what do you do with the finances? You invest in your own, you rebuild your own. And that's the conversation that they don't want us to have. They want us to, as you mentioned, why do they show portrayals of Africa as impoverished and destitute, all the while they're over there? If it's so bad, then why are you over there?
And why are you investing?
Exactly.
You know,
That's the game. That's the
why are
game.
you buying land, building houses, building industries, you know, having businesses, you know, why are you doing that?
Exactly. Well, the important thing for me is about this is a part of self-reclamation. And as you mentioned, the quilting of, there is that notion that, folks from America that are of African heritage and those on the continent, that there's been this bridge, this wall of distrust. And going there, and that's again perpetuated through media. But when you go over there, they call you cousin, they call you
Mhm.
family. So we're actually, we're boots on the ground as far as saying, let's debunk the myths. Let's go there and see for yourself. Forget what you see on TV. Get a passport, go see for yourself and explain and experience that relationship. And also live in a way where you actually feel welcome. You actually feel like you're amongst your own. And although global white dependency is a global thing, there's more things we can do there than we can here. And I think that that's something that we should all entertain.
And it's about having that real conversation, because I know that a lot of Black Americans, African Americans are turned off by the idea of, I went to Ghana and all they did was beg me, can you buy this from me? Can you do this for me? Can you bring me to America? And Me Too. I mean, I was part of that Me Too movement. I was like, okay, can you stop asking me? Like, because I got my troubles too. And, you know, my money thing, and I'm doing the best I know how in this moment. So, you know, like, can I ask you the same thing? Like, can I say, sponsor me, let me come to Africa and,
Right.
and be with my people? No, I can't ask you that, because your mindset is already set on, I can't do that. I don't have this. I don't have as much as you have. And I'm like, but have you seen some of the living conditions in America? Like, do you know what American people are living with? American Blacks are living with? Do you recognize that? And I say this all the time, and God forgive me, because I, you know, like, because when I talk to my Haitian family, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a show with a week with a focus on IT, you know, land of freedom. And so when I talk to my Haitian counterparts, they say, it's because I always say, you don't see them killing African people, African from the continent people in the streets. Like, you don't see a George Floyd, but the last one was Amadou Diallo. You
Right.
know how many years
Right.
that was ago? That was like what, the 70s,
Uh, 90s,
80s,
yeah, in the
90s.
90s.
Okay. So I mean, so the last time they killed an African from the continent,
Yeah,
or a Haitian, they killing Haitians in all kinds of other ways, but you don't see them, you don't see the jails filled with y'all. So that's
right.
why we got a chip on our shoulders about you. And then the Haitian people say, hey, some Haitian people were committing suicide because y'all were not treating us right. And so I say, well, humble apologies for my
Yes.
people. And I got to go back and have that conversation, because
Right.
the hard conversations are what's going to make things change.
Yes.
Without them, we just, shuffling around on the surface of stuff. Like, you know, like, why did you all sell us into enslavement? You know, and say, well, we didn't sell you into enslavement like that, but we were negotiating for our own livelihoods and our own lives. And so that's what I love about Woman King and other movies that, you know, no, I'm not for all the violence of, you know, and somebody said, oh, that's black against black crime. And I said, well, what would you consider it with the 10 policemen, black policemen who beat this boy to death? What would you consider that? Would you consider that black on black crime something you don't, you know, I mean,
yeah,
you know, we got a lot to think about and we got a lot to talk about, you know, because trying to get to this subject of abundance is like, you know, we are just skirting the surface because it's like I said before, people want to drink the Kool-Aid and the antidote for poverty at the same time. You know, it's like they don't realize that the Kool-Aid is the antidote for poverty in the secular world. You know, they don't realize that, hey, look, you drinking the poison when you like, please, Mr. White Man, can you pay for me to come to America? Because that man has got a plan and you don't.
and that's the point I would make too, is that, you know, of all of the things that, I mean, to some degree, we got to tip our hat off to global white dependency. Francis Cress Welsing and Neely Fuller Jr. Mark put it out in the compensatory code book, the 10 areas of people activity of economics, education, entertainment, health, labor law, politics, sex, religion, and war. The 10th one being health, with Brother Akidi Awudu adding that to it. That is their blueprint to global white dependency. And so it is hard for us to, you know, come together with all these other things that are happening. But I think the one thing we haven't spent enough time on is economics. If you deal with the finances, if we start to build those finances as a collective, the trust will be built, the independency will be built. Because in all essence, we're all going to the same person asking for solutions that he's never and will never give to us. So then we fight each other. That's the crab in the barrel theory. Let's look at the puppeteer who is really making us not like each other. The ads that are being put out, the type of, you know, agitation propaganda, these things are set up. This is why history should go tandem with finances. You need to understand how we are why are we in this position? It's strategically done. It is not something that is individualistic. This is a global spectrum on our people. We are the most impoverished, but yes, the most wealthy people on the planet and don't even know it. So if we dealt with finances and understanding that, that would free us up, we would own our time, and then we could circumnavigate what is my purpose here and what can I do to address these issues socioeconomically, you know, and yes, it may mean some violence because they're not going to go out without a fight, but that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's been. If we look at the 9 golden ages, and now Valley, they knew that they were going to have and lose and get it back and lose and have it back. It's time to get it back. And it's not going to be given back through a handshake. So we must have that cultural basis of who we are, the historical analysis of our relationship with our nemesis, and then understanding who truly is our ally versus who is our enemy.
Yeah, and those are the boundaries of that integration that I was talking about. You know, if we got to live with them, we can't, you know, but like Stevie says, make sure when you say you're not in it, but not of it.
Yes.
You know, you're not helping to make this a place called hell. You know, make sure. So the other thing is, okay, let's see, I had all my little questions ready, but you know, I'm off my game right now because I'm like, what? This is
liquid right now. We water right now.
It's beautiful. It's so nice. It's such a nice flow, and I'm so thankful to you. So the other thing is community, building community. You know, the unity factor is so prevalent. So are you associated with Habisha?
No such time.
So Habisha is an amazing foundation created by two African brothers, but one I think is from the Caribbean and one is and it's in Ghana, and they are starting. So, and they have the sustainability group, the Black Sustainability Organization, that's building all kinds of amazement and doing all kinds of amazing things. And I asked the question when I went to their summit, Why is it that we aren't partnering up with Africans? Like, we go there and we act like white folks. We build our beautiful establishments and whatnot, but we're not unifying. We're not partnering up. So we get them to work with us and we think that's as far as partnering up goes, but that's not partnering up. That's the same dynamic as the Euro dynamic. You know, they come and they build their edifices and then their businesses and everything, and then they hire you to work for them. And that's not economically sound for us. That's not building unity. That's not beneficial. Because one of the things that I said earlier was that the whole Greenwood experience was building community, where we could say, you know, your mama don't allow you to do that. And we have this integrated community now where the Chinese has a house right here, the Italian has a house right here, and the Caucasian has a house over there, the Black man has a house over here, and then nobody's like looking out for your children like that. You know, they might be playing together every now and then or whatever, and they might be playing together in peace, and it's okay. But there's not that depth of community building that's required to protect, you know, connected is protected.
Yes.
You know, that is protecting you. Like, one of the things I love about the Rosewood movie is that brother, you know, he got on the horse and he went at it to protect the children, to protect, you know, so nobody was in it alone. Everybody was for everybody. And even though there was some amazing, well-noted white folks that were in it, in our community, they understood our community and they helped. Okay, so I'm thankful for their help. You know, just like during enslavement, there were white folks, mostly what are they? The religious group, I forgot what it's not the Mormons, definitely not the Mormons, the Quakers, who kind of understood our community dynamic, that we were creating an infrastructure, like support system, that would allow us to each one help the other one get to their goal. We need that in finances too.
Absolutely.
We need that financial community. So on Thursday, we're going to have the Novatech investment community, and we're going to have the Woo investment community. At least I hope we will have Woo. And then we're going to try to get the millionaire mindset, because there's a brother, Haziq Ali, who's running the millionaire mindset, where you're doing these affirmations and you're doing all of these things and all of that. So we're trying to do that. But what say you about building a community network, financial community network, so that we can be more fortified and more closely knit? You know, I mean, even with people in the prison community. I mean, because you know how many of us are in the prison community, and now when you get out of prison, you got to pay back the debt that you acquired when you were in prison. So it used to be that they would give you a check because you were doing something, but now they require you to pay, like, you know, they require you to pay thousands back. And all of these brothers who were in there wrongfully brought into prison, Mumia and you know, and the brother who was recently Henson, or what, I can't remember his name, but he was recently released after being in prison for almost 50 years, like, you know, wrongfully accused. You know, we have got to find a way to connect and unify over our financial situations. Yeah. What say you?
I think that's, again, first and foremost, that's the, you know, we can talk about our civil injustices and liberties and things of that nature. And we've seen, you know, we can march, we can protest, we've seen what that gives us. The next conversation should be about, you know, us getting together, about talking about getting together, you know, and that means, you know, as a collective, how do we look to use the same monetary system to our advantage? You know, that's one of the things that I teach in my courses, is like, how do we as a collective, you know, imagine your family bloodline all having 720, 50 plus credit scores, having six to even approaching 7-figure points of credit lines, then business lines as well, and even moving the trust space so that you can protect these things and have certain legal and tax advantages that, these white folks that we complain about have. This imperative that we have this conversation because, again, the goalpost is about to get moved. There's things that are happening with the digitization of money that, as I'm doing my studies, I'm learning that as we get rid of the fiat and we move to digital currency, if you are using something that is US based, then they have the ability to turn that money off. That you feel like you have a certain amount of dollars in your account and you can spend it whenever you want. Well, no, if they want to turn that money off, it can be turned off because it's digital. So these are things that we need to look at as far as the acquisition of wealth, but then also the tangibility of making it something that you can touch, like land, like monetizing that land, not just to live on it, but creating food forests, the basic things that we need to sustain ourselves. When we're in that position of being able to basically cover those food, clothing, water, and shelter, those basic things and those amenities are met, then we're talking about, as a collective, what do we do next? How do we scale that to address the basic things? Life isn't about having a job. Life is about being able to provide those basic necessities to sustain yourself. So that conversation of economics is so important because, again, we have to pay rent to live here. Then let's figure out how we can make money work for us, opposed to us working for it. So I think that we're in that stage. But as we're entering this stage, we must also understand the opposition is aware of it as well, because they are planning, they're futurologists. And as they say, if you want to own the future, you got to plan it. So we must adopt those same philosophies, but also understand they have a head start. If this is a 26.2 mile marathon, they're at mile 23 and we're just putting our shoes on. So we got to catch up as far as what we have in store, what we have planned. And it's not about racing them or trying to catch up to them, so to speak, but it's about the unification of ourselves, getting our egos out the way, getting our religious beliefs out of the way, and understanding that these are nothing but obstacles and detours that have been set up by that very same person we're fighting that's been keeping it from us. And if we realize the only thing we have in common is this and our common goal of being free, then we'll get there much quicker. So I think economics should be
tell me your lineup, because we're running out of time and I am so just tell me your lineup of steps. So buy your book. That's first. That's the first thing. First thing, buy the book. Okay. Yes. So and okay, but I mean, I'm just jesting about that. What would you say? Call the top 10 people on your phone list and say, look, let's get together and have a powwow about our financial situation, or it's just sit down with your husband. Or what is your plan of action? What are the first 5 on the plan of action?
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I would say is that, if you're in search, and if you're even start with the people you care with most. If it's not directly in your household, if you have children that are old enough, meaning that they're at least 8 or 9 years old, make them aware of finances as well. A good tool, as I'm going to self-plug, is the book or taking one of my courses. You can go to cryptowokemovement.com and you could see the array of courses that I offer that are age friendly as far as teaching.
What is the cost of the course?
So I have a self-paced course and a group session course. The group session course and one-to-ones are starting at $540. Okay. And then self-paced is at $450. But that's the highest market. I have a boot camp class as well that is a little bit cheaper. It's at $360. So it's a small investment, but it's a life skill.
So I want to think about the possibility, and stay with me on it, because I get so busy sometimes. We're a new company, but we'd like to sponsor. We'd like to scholarship someone. Maybe we can choose 3 people. We can give that as a scholarship in our when we have our launch for the website. We're going to do a raffle, not a raffle, but a auction. Okay. And so we'll see about possibly auctioning. Well, we'll talk more about that with you, about auctioning off one of your classes, and then auctioning off some of your signed books, or one of your signed books. We just want to see how we can work with you and we can help to further things. And I know it takes me a long time, because I called you about 6 months ago and said, I really want you in October. And then now we're just getting here, but
Divine time.
I'm still healing from some things, and I'm still, so I'm pressing forward, but I'm here. And don't count me out, as they say. So in closing, can you give everybody your information? Make sure we have it all. It's written down. Write it in the chat for us. Make sure everybody can make contact with you, and then we're going to get ready for our movie. Our movie tonight is Trading Spaces, the comedy about Eddie Murphy and him coming from rags to riches, and all of that good stuff. So and understanding that once he understood how to deal with his finances, nobody could bring him down, and so he was empowered, and that's the truth for all of us. Once you understand, as a person of melanated, anything, as a person of melanin content, high melanin content, we all have that super extra sensitive ability. Once we learn something, anything we touch can turn to gold. We've got the Midas touch, or I should say the Mansa Musa touch.
There you go.
So hey, and we'll be reading about Mansa Musa on Saturday. So keep with us, everybody. This is going to be a powerful week. Already is.
But that's a power for your time, sister. I appreciate you. Appreciate all of the work you're doing. I look to get more engaged in what you're doing. This is what community is about. As you said, come for the unity. It's important that we see that as vanguards, as our lifespan, we choose. Steve Coakley even said, this is not a job that comes with a pension, and we're volunteering a lot of our time and efforts, but it's because of the love of our ancestors and the fact that we have those following us. And I want to make sure that they know things earlier than I did. I don't want them to be 20, 25, 30, just figuring out who they are. They should know this from coming out of the womb if possible. So with the work that you're doing, and I salute you, or salute you. And
salute you.
Yes.
I take it.
Yes. And
Jake,
it's all about getting flowers. It's about flowers and the pollinating the flowers so that we can reach more folk, because it's there, it's in us genetically, and we are waking up. And I'm so happy to be in this space where we can speak about this and speak this into purpose and fruition. So I look forward to doing continued works. Madasi Pa for your time.
Blessings. Midasi Pa. All right, take care now.
All right, bless.
Bless up. Okay, yes, indeed. All right, well, everybody, we're going to take a little pause for the cause. I hope you enjoyed that. Florence, did you have something? Did you want to ask him something? I didn't even ask if anybody had any questions. We were just going on. So, I'm so sorry about that. But I will definitely make sure everybody gets his number and his email address and all of his information so that we all can stay in contact. So we're going to move on to take a pause for the cause and then get ready for our movie night, which is Trading Spaces with Eddie Murphy. So hold your horses and stay with us. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Florence and Baba Yao, for being here and staying with us. I appreciate it so, so much. You can't even know how wonderful I think it is. Thank you.